DVC here. This is a quick video to just explain mechanics. This isn't supposed to be a controversial topic, alright? We're not getting into village leader or anything like that. This is just how it works, alright? This is a village, on a bed. This whole thing, the red area, is the village. Now, let's say you don't believe me. That is totally fine. Let's look at the evidence. So we're going to go to MCC tool chest, wait for this to finish loading, and open village testing, which is the world I just played on. So as we can see from the data, I think it's this, no. It's in the thousands. Yeah, here. So this is the village that I just showed. So let's look at village center calculator, which is just a basic thing to visualize the dimensions of the village. So x0 is negative 1024, x1 is negative 960, then we have 0 and 64. So if we zoom out, the blue rectangle will be right here. And in this case, you could do the math or just look at these grids, which are 16 blocks away from each other. This is a 64 by 64 square. Now, let's look at POI, and there's only one POI in this entire village, and that is a bed. You can tell it's a bed because the capacity is 1, and it is in the first entry. This is where bells go, and this is where workstations go. So right here, we see that the POI is centered at negative 992, whoopsie, and 32. So you can see that this XPOI thing is a polygon of 64 by 64 centered on these coordinates. So whatever these coordinates are right here, there is a 64 by 64 square that is created in red. Alright? And this blue calculation basically just says, alright, get me the range or the mean between these two numbers and these two numbers, z0 and z1, and create a point. That's the circle right here, the blue circle. And then this polygon right here is created just from these coordinates, x0 and x1, z0 and z1. So if you were wondering about how that works, that's it. So by any stretch, this is a very simple village, right? There's a single bed, a single villager, and the smallest village size possible. It is 64 by 24 by 64. If we look at this again, you can see that that the y goes from negative 8 to 16, and 16 minus negative 8 is 24. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a second villager. Good. We're going to wait for him to link. Perfect. And I have a red boundary here for the red bed, and a yellow boundary, which I could have put here, but it stretches from the red boundary to this yellow boundary. So this is, if you want to call it that, I'm not going to comment on that right now, but if you wanted to call this guy something, this guy would be the village leader. Again, no comments there. This is just the first villager of the village. This is the highest POI. When we first created the village, it was the only POI, so, you know, that doesn't say a whole lot. And now we have added a second villager. Now, if we zoom out a little bit, you can see that the center, or the middle of the two beds is right where that red and green line is. But that's not where the center is. The center of the village is the center of this rectangle. And I'm going to show that to you right now. And now we see that the numbers have changed. This used to be 64, and now it's 96. So let's open Microsoft Edge, negative 1024, negative 960, 0, and 96. So we can see that the village size has changed. This is exactly what is being shown. This is the red boundary, and this is the yellow boundary. Now we're going to look at POI, and we can see that there are two entries. They are populated by this. This is the highest POI. This, if you want to use the term, this is the POI of the village leader, and it's at negative 992, 32. So these numbers have not changed. The second villager's POI is at negative 992, so same x-coordinate, 96. And we can see that it's right on the edge, right? It is exactly on the edge. I shouldn't have done that. So what we see happening is that the village center, the village center is first calculated by the original red square, and then it is stretched to accommodate any new POIs. And by POI, of course, I mean point of interest, and so far we only have beds, and we're only going to deal with beds in this video. Now, this is what I've seen hotly contested recently. And that is, what happens when you destroy the red bed? I've seen a lot of talk, but I'm going to show you the evidence. Right? This is the foundation of the code. Well, not the code per se, but this guy has a red bed. This guy has a green bed. What happens when we destroy the red bed? So there are two theories. That's not the right term. There are two possibilities. We'll use that word. The first possibility is that the bed being destroyed doesn't do anything, and the center remains right, right here-ish. I think that's the center, right there. The second thing that can happen is that this bed, and this is what actually happens, and I'm about to show it, what actually happens is when I destroy the red bed, boom, this red area is no longer considered part of the village. The only part of the village that is registered by Minecraft is this bed right here. That villager might as well not exist as far as the village is concerned, in terms of village size. So we can see this green boundary that I have placed. This is the new village. That guy and his destroyed bed mean nothing to the village. He's still part of the village. If you look at, while I'm waiting for this to load, if you look at dwellers, you will see that there are okay, wrong one. Here, you'll see that there are two actors, and these are the IDs for the villagers. So, let's look again at what happened when I destroyed the red bed. So we look at the data, we look at right here, negative 1024, negative 960, that's the same. 64, 128, those numbers are different. So let's change this. So this is no longer 0, it's 64. And this is no longer 96, it's 128. So you can see, this is where the red boundary is, and this is where the green boundary is, right? The yellow was from this point all the way to here, to the right, down, and back. But this village has now been shifted completely outside of this area. And if we look at the POIs, so it says there are two entries, but as you can see here, all of these are blank. That's normal. This is where the bed would be, this is where the bell would be, and this is where the workstation would be. This is where the bell is for the green bed villager, and of course there are no bells or workstations. So the new center is located right here. So if you don't like the color coding, I can do this. Which is kind of dumb, but just so that the colors aren't red and blue. Oh, they're green. Of course they are. But you can see this is now the green region. I know it looks kind of weird. Don't worry about it. So this is the new village. All right. And let's do one more thing, and that is to replace the red bed. Cocoa Krispies, am I right? And chalky milk. Okay, so one thing that I also want to point out is that the way that I've placed these beds are intentionally random, but the pillow is on the northwest block of this chunk. And on the northwest block of this chunk, the iron chunk. Okay, so this guy has linked to the bed. If we get our bell, he's the first one to delink. Alright, so whatever you want to do with that information, but the point is that this guy is now part of the village, and so is that guy. And because this guy has the top location right here, he has the top POI, he is what I call the High Chief. And I call him the High Chief because he's not the leader of the village, he's just the chief, the appointed chief. The chief can change, and he's the highest on this POI thing. So now that this has finished loading, let's open up the world again, one last time, if it'll respond. Village testing. Alright, so open this up, info, and we can see that these dimensions have reverted to what they were before. So if I Control Z, 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 you'll see that negative 1024, negative 960, 096, that's 64, whoopsie, 096, I should have Control Z'd one more time, 096, and when we look at the top POI, negative 992, 32. So even though I destroyed the first bed, the village is now recentered, shifted toward that new village. So let me add one more point to represent this right here. So it's at negative 992, comma 96, right? This is the green bed, and this is the red bed. So the red bed belongs to the villager whose POIs are at the top. So this is the quote-unquote village leader, quote-unquote high chief, whatever term you want to use. This villager is responsible for the highest POI. If there are no POIs, then the next highest is this one. So in the case where this villager right here did not have a bed, this guy's bed became the center of a new village, or the same village rather, and it was from this point right here to this point right here. But because he now has a bed, he now has control over the original dimensions. When you leave that area, when you leave the red area, the blue point changes. That is the center of the village, right? And when the bed is right here, then this becomes the new center. And it's not where any POI is. This is not a bed, this is not a workstation, this is just the physical center of the village. And it is dependent on these four numbers. So if I move this way over here, if this is the bed and this were part of the same village, then this would be the center, and it's completely outside of the original village center. So if I delete this, then the village center will revert back to, what was it, 64? Yeah. And the same is true if I change if I add a village bed over here. So if I move the bed all the way over here, then this will be the far bottom right corner, or the northeast corner, I think. I know this way is north right here, but the coordinates are flipped. So this is the northeast corner right here, and this will remain the same. What will change is the southwest corner. So if you have any questions, please let me know.